just doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's just layers of distribution. I call it a club sandwich, the club sandwich of real estate. If you take out one layer of toast, it doesn't matter.
If you're not getting educated about local and national market trends, industry news, and talking everything about what's happening on the political environment, we've got all kinds of stuff that we got to talk about here today. You're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with the usual suspects, Byron Lazine and Lisa Chinatti. But more importantly, we've got one of my favorite people in real estate, the CEO and co-founder of Tomo, the former president of Zillow. He just completed Series B funding for Tomo Mortgage and now have a new partnership with Progressive. Greg Schwartz. Greg, I'm shocked you're on this, and I got to tell you why.
What?
I don't know if you recall. We had this Tom Ferry event in Boston, and it was the first time I actually got to see you speak, and someone on the pod, I think it was Lisa, there was talk of Zillow Flex and connections and all these things, and you were at Zillow, and it was one of the most uncomfortable seminars I've ever been to with the back and forth. And I give Greg a lot of credit. He's got some grace. He's coming on the pod here. Tell us your reaction to that event. I've got to know. I've never asked you this. Well, what better time to do it?
You have to tell all the people what happened that weren't in the room.
I want them to explain. I want their points of view, because Greg, I was just there and I was just eating popcorn.
Let's get Greg's point of view. Not Lisa. Lisa will dress it up. What's Greg's point of view on that?
Greg's point of view is math takes a while to work its way through people's emotions. We were changing up the Zillow Premier Agent program. Zillow was, because we had such a terrible time getting people, this is agents to answer our lead calls. We decided
this is 2018, right? Just for everybody, for context,
October 2018. I will never
This is ancient
forget
history.
it.
We're going to put a concierge in between to make sure someone answered customers' calls when they said, I want to see a house. And it was the end of the world as our advertisers knew it. We did a national tour. I had pens thrown at me. I had
Not
people
by me.
threatening,
That wasn't me.
not by you. I had people threatening to storm the stage. And Lisa was, how would I describe it? Still poised, but on the edge of giving me a Massachusetts beatdown, I think.
You can take the girl out of Boston, but you can never take the Boston out of the girl. And the math wasn't mathing, Greg. It's not that it was.
See?
She still thinks she's right. She still thinks she's right.
Maybe it wasn't mathing for her.
Yeah, it was mathing for Zillow with their $1 billion in the bank, and I could take my 20 grand a month and cancel my contracts. Yeah.
Luckily now I'm just a little mortgage guy. I'm just trying to help a little mortgage.
Funny.
Greg, you handled yourself very well in that situation. And I think some of the things, obviously, that have proven out in that model from that point to today, it has been, a lot of it's been about that customer service that you're referring to. So I guess we'll leave it there. If you were in the room, it was a very tense moment, but I'm not surprised Greg came back on, because I've always been very friendly to Greg, despite Lisa being on this pod.
Same here.
We mended this bridge years ago. I think it was at a band event, standing outside by a pool on a rooftop, sweating our bodies to death.
Yeah, and we'll go on and get out of history to some important things. There's important things reshaping our industry now. But my very first NAR, I was standing at a little table with Zillow tablecloth on it. We didn't have a big booth, and a woman came up to me who I'd never met before, picked up a pen and started throwing the Zillow pens at me off the table, because she said we were the end of organized real estate. And I think it was my first few weeks. So that was nothing. That was Lisa glaring me down was nothing. And we're best pals now.
Well, I think that leads us into maybe the end of maybe brokerage as we know it. Tom will tee up this first topic for us, because Greg, I think your thoughts are going to be very insightful on this.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover today. So I'm very interested to hear what you have to say, Greg. And I do agree you handled yourself like a pro. No question about it in that situation. So we've got Fannie Mae and Freddie. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. And also this clear cooperation and this crusade that Robert Reffkin seems to be on. But first, we want to talk about mortgage companies becoming brokerages, brokerages becoming mortgage companies. Obviously, Rocket.com purchased Redfin. Byron believes Zillow is going to be doing something very similar here and maybe purchasing a mortgage company in the future. They're already pushing
Another. I mean,
they're already pushing ZHL.
A big one is my prediction. I think maybe Loan Depot, something like that. I don't know. Maybe Tomo. I don't know. Some big mortgage company.
So what do you think about this, Greg? I mean, you're in the mortgage business. You're running a mortgage company. A lot of the products that your company offers, I think, are very progressive and innovative. We've talked about that stuff off of the pod here.
Yep.
Give us your take on the direction of the mortgage and brokerage industry, and maybe a lot of these companies kind of merging together here.
Okay, and make it fun. We'll go to the real, if you get my drift, and maybe be a little controversial. Hey, two things have happened. We all know in the brokerage business over the last 10 years, the commission dollars have moved from the broker, the company, to the agent, and the broker's overhead has stayed the same. So every broker in the land that's got their eye on the ball has been looking to diversify their revenue streams because they got to pay the bills and they want to buy a bigger boat. They want to be the ones buying the big boat. So that's what's driving this all. So, hey, my take on Rocket, and I haven't talked to them about it, Rocket buying Redfin and this integration it's about spreading marketing dollars. We're heading into a period, and we saw it with Homes.com entering the portal wars. We can talk about that big loss for them. They've had a rough few weeks, I think. These guys are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing. They've got to spread that across more and more revenue. That's what I think is really going on is, hey, if I can get a few bucks of mortgage revenue, a few bucks of title revenue, and a few bucks of portal revenue, which is high margin and beautiful as a public company, I can spend more and more on Super Bowl ads or wherever I want to do it. And there's no emotion to these things. It's just capitalism, pure capitalism from big companies. And it has to come from somewhere. All those dollars come from somewhere. And it's likely it comes from the agent's pocket.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that 100%. I agree that the Rocket Redfin model is to squeeze that agent side. One of the things Glenn Kelman talks about, he's going to be staying on as CEO, which is the only reason maybe this sale happened. I would have looked at Redfin as a parts company, and I would have gotten rid of the parts that for multiple decades haven't seemed to work. That's not what Rocket is doing. So far, the indications are they're going to keep the 2,000 plus agents. To me, when you go that model, you're saying goodbye forever to any, inbound agent referral business. Probably not a big part. They're generating 2 million, opportunities a year as far as the information that I can see. So they're probably focused on the online businesses they get, the online business that Redfin gets. But they're certainly going to have some model, more of this discounted real estate agent service, because that's where they're going to squeeze, is that agent commission side. So it's a discounted service from the agent side. Redfin has proven to me that doesn't necessarily work. It's not what the consumers want, because consumers haven't overwhelmingly, used that model when presented with the other models. So, in terms of the customer service end of things, where do you see that going?
Yeah, the customer experience is an interesting one. It may go a few different ways. Redfin was already starting to de-emphasize the real estate agent, the in-house real estate agents, and starting to move towards more of the Zillow model, a referral fee model. I suspect Rocket will embrace that. I suspect those 2,000 agents won't be working there in a year. And this is
I would do it today, by the way, but that's interesting that they're saying it's not going to happen, but you're saying it will happen eventually. It'll work its way out.
I suspect. Hey, big public companies don't love managing the messiness of individual agents, right? The economics are different. We all know that. It's also just a pain. And big companies with big margins don't love the pain associated with it, I think.
I think the acquisition makes a lot of sense. So why would you keep that part, which is proven for a couple decades now not to be fruitful? And why wouldn't you just go rip off Zillow model and just go, we're gonna basically be a brokerage without being a brokerage, and we're gonna take the margin. We're gonna take the 40%. If I'm Rocket Redfin, that's what I'm doing. Let's just go partners on agents, take the 40%. on the deals. Do the Zillow Flex model, which is proven to work. You know, like when Instagram saw the growth of Snapchat and it was Snapchat stories, they didn't say, oh, let me go create something completely different to compete. They said, let's just start Instagram stories. You have Snapchat stories. Let's not even change the name. Let's go Instagram stories. I'm kind of puzzled that they're not coming out. They're talking about the same playbook, integrated end-to-end ecosystem. That's Zillow super app with different, words on it. So they're talking about the same thing, just run the same play.
Yeah. Tell me if I'm over talking you guys. I'm sure you have strong feelings here too. Hey, with the weakening of RESPA, which is clearly the CFPB and the weakening of RESPA.
I want your comments on RESPA though, too.
We're in a cycle. And there's always a RESPA cycle, a regulatory cycle, and it's often decades long. And there's a new little thing. It used to be MSAs, marketing service agreements, and then it was in-house lenders within brokers. And I think we're hitting peak portal RESPA risk here, and it's going to go on for a year or two, and then the dance is going to stop, and someone's going to be holding the bag. But hey, it's pretty obvious right now. If you're a mortgage company buying a portal or a portal buying a mortgage company, the fox is watching the hen house on RESPA. You're trying to link these things as tight as you possibly can. Getting the real estate lead with the mortgage transaction, you're linking those very tightly. That's the riskiest point for an agent and a broker in the regulatory makeup of real estate. And it seems like those things are getting more and more tightly linked, and the risk is going up and up.
Where's the line on pressure? Go ahead, Lisa, jump in on that.
Well, I was going to say the interesting thing, and I think the kind of watching at where Zillow's interesting, I'm a broker owner, right? So like I kind of walk that line on the brokerage side. And the interesting thing is what Zillow is doing is pushing 100% of that risk to me as this small little person in managing the agent side. But on both sides, so like super interesting stuff with the dynamic between agents being 1099s versus W-2s. A lot of states don't have laws really fully dialed in that make that delineation based on the regulatory controls. And when you look at IRS tax law, Massachusetts is one in particular that hasn't spelled out, do we have a true carve out for real estate agents with not just the controls that I'm required to put on for protecting the public, fair housing, lead paint, yada, 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 but also to comply with the flex program policies, answer rate, appointment set rate, updating your CRM. And then now you look at the enhanced markets coming from Zillow. So I'm curious on your take on that, because I've got, as a broker owner, some, real interesting, takes on it and insights on it that I find fascinating.
Lisa, we could go for a very, very long pod, I imagine, on this one. But hey, I'm not a lawyer, and I find people in real estate claim, and I'm not saying you do, claim to have great knowledge of the law. I have a rough sense of it as a son of a lawyer, which is a tough man. It's tough being a son of a lawyer.
Better than a son of a, you know what?
Yeah, you got it. You got it. And I never say that. We have a belief at Tomo Mortgage, which is may the truth set you free. And at the end of the day, if you're doing the right thing and you're saying what you're doing, I haven't found regulators to rough you up too bad. It's when you're hiding it and you're all winking. So at the 100%. End of the day, what do we owe? And I found them, everyone complains about regulators. I found them to be reasonably reasonable, and I probably just cursed myself. At the end of the day, on all this stuff, does the buyer or seller actually understand what the agent is asking and directing them to do? If they understand who actually owns the mortgage company, that they're getting a well-priced or a high-priced mortgage from, with or without fees, if they actually understand the choice they're making, you're in good shape. If you choose, and I know I'm jumping around here, if you choose to distribute a listing on a portal or an MLS or an inside intranet or wherever you want to do it, a telephone pole, if the customer there's an auto check of a box, but if the customer actually understands the decisions being done on their behalf, you're going to be just fine. And if they don't, you're a pawn. You're a pawn of billion-dollar companies. And I promise you, who's the class action guy that just nicked us as an industry?
Catchmark. Michael Catchmark.
I promise you, Michael is hanging around, reading and watching. And when he comes around the next time on the next thing, there's probably going to be RESPA.
It's interesting. He hasn't had many
legal bills.
It's interesting. He hasn't had many comments on RESPA or Zillow. It's almost like, I'm shocked that he hasn't brought that up because he's been very outspoken in a lot of commentary, and he hasn't been on Zillow or on RESPA. So it's almost like somebody that comes to the playground and they're a big bad eighth grader, but it's like a middle school and you've got, fifth graders to eighth graders. And he's like not picking a fight with other eighth graders. He's going after the fifth grader NAR who doesn't have their ducks in a row, who can't defend themselves. It's like, ooh, this is an easy target. Let me go squash them. Maybe he's just getting some wins under his belt so he can like go up against that eighth grader, 8-0. But he's not saying much about RESPA. And I would agree with you. To me, that's the big takedown. That would be the one thing that would really, you talk about being on the map, taking down NAR, easy target, taking down some of the RESPA stuff. So with that potentially looming over, do you see more Rocket Redfin scenarios in the next couple of years? Because you could also argue that maybe we're in a deregulatory phase. So maybe the opening is here. You're talking about a couple of years, maybe being peak RESPA risk, but I guess you could take the other argument. Like it's all about deregulation with the new administration. Is there a window to maybe go make these acquisitions and deal with whatever comes later? Do you see more acquisitions coming that look like that, where it's mortgage, brokerage combined and squeezing the agent?
Yeah. In the secrets, they're not so secret, in the strategy talks I had at my past companies, and I won't go into the particulars of them because that's not fair. We talked about innovation cycles, platform innovation cycles a lot. And the things that you see if you study cycles of innovation. And we're clearly in the middle of one where we're 15 years, 20 years into a mobile real estate driven innovation cycle. It is everything that's got to be done is largely squeezed out in the current paradigm. And that's when you shift from product innovation to brand innovation. And that's where you tend to see consolidation happen when there's not much different in the services. And if you tick down here, the real estate websites all look identical, all have the same picture on their homepage, all have the search box in the exact same place. All the results now look the same across all of our devices. We've settled on a marketing model, which is largely transitioning towards kind of a hybrid referral fee. Everyone's bulking up with related services. And whether you're a big broker or a portal, I don't really see any difference anymore because they're all starting to look like big conglomerates. Agent dollar has settled in somewhere what an agent gets at it unless they go an indie and they do it themselves in these cycles. This is a classic commoditization cycle where there isn't much innovation left. And then you start fighting about ad budgets. And you can see that in the supermarket aisle. I think about P&G and Pepsi and Coke. No one ever talks about the syrup being a little bit more tastier. They talk about different ads and who's got a bigger ad budget. So we're here till this AI thing, which I know you've talked lots about, and anyone that says they know what's happening with AI 3, 4, 5 years from now is full of it because it's being invented in front of our eyes. Until AI really starts to take hold, I think we're going to be here, a battle of titans fighting about budget, ad budget, and agents being at the bottom of the stack paying for it. That's my take.
And the ad budget is basically to do, I would say, you've got brand and you've got AI as the two things that are to me, one prediction you can make about AI is in 4 or 5 years, to your point, it's going to be a substantial part of every business, of every life, of all of that. It's happening in front of our eyes. And so what's left, it's going to be that, and it's going to be brand. And so this ad campaign that you're talking about, or this ad war between these big major companies and the consolidation comes down to who can build the biggest and the best brand so that they've got the opportunity to integrate AI and all that kind of stuff when it becomes a reality.
I think you've summarized it perfectly. And I think that's what the next 4 or 5 years has ahead for us.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to be small in these next 4 or 5 years.
I agree with that.
All right, let's move on. Tom, what do we got next?
Yeah, so I'm very curious what you think about this, Greg. So this Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac stuff. So Bill Pulte, he made a lot of board changes at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and there's talk that they're going to go. These are GSE companies, so they're there's a lot of filings with the SEC. So they're government-sponsored enterprises. 6 board members were removed at Freddie Mac. 8 were removed from Fannie Mae. And obviously, it's been under this conservatorship since 2008. And now there's talk about moving it out of the conservatorship. I don't think a lot of people know what this means. I think there's a lot of questions here. I know the market's pretty bullish on this based on some stock readings that Byron was talking about.
Bobby, pull those up because I think the numbers are shocking to look at. I mean, investors 100% believe that these 2 entities are going to be private, going back into the private sector. The stock shift. This is, you can look at it from January 1st January 1st, 2024. Not much happens. And then on the gray bar with the Trump win in November, you can see these stocks, Fannie and Freddie, skyrocket. Since January 1 of 2024, Fannie's up 463%, Freddie's up 498%. The majority of those gains have come from November with the Trump victory to today, just a skyrocketing of the 2 stocks, while the S&P 500 is 19% up since January 1st, 2024. So the market believes these are going private. Greg, what would your take be on that? And what happens if they go private? I think Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, has said, we're not doing it until we know the impact on rates. There's a caution flag to me that when you do it, there's going to be an impact on rates. How do you think this shakes out with one of 2 mortgages being backed by Fannie or Freddie?
Yeah. Does everyone know what these GSEs, what Fannie and Freddie really are?
I'd love for you to
I'd love for you to explain it for the readers or the listeners, because most agents have no idea. I mean, I've done my research, and I'm probably one of 100 people, that do those things. So,
yeah. So I'll give the summarized version. Hey, these are the 2 most powerful entities in the real estate and housing industry in America, period, hands down. So these are very, very important entities. And I disclose, I bought those. I'm now long the stocks too. I'm betting with the market on this. So peace on that.
Send me a text next time. I wasn't smart enough to think about that one.
Yeah. So, hey, here's what they do. They set the standards for it. So we've got the 2 GSEs, then the FHA and the VA. Effectively, the government is sponsoring or controlling or buying about 80% of all mortgages go through the government's hands. In the FHA's hands, effectively. So we're a mortgage lender, a mortgage bank. We go and we underwrite a mortgage. Generally, it's to the standards that Freddie and Fannie have set: income, credit, assets, REO, all that stuff that agents are always struggling through the process. It's largely set by these 2 companies, because we then sell it as a lender. We sell the mortgage to them. They or another entity put it in a bond and sell it to our retirement funds. And that's what's going on. The reason why American housing is so much more vibrant than housing across the world is, in the process of underwriting to their standards, they insure the mortgage. So they basically say, as long as the mortgage lender followed their process, their standards, and did an ethical, proper, accurate job, if that home buyer goes non-compliant, they don't pay the mortgage, Freddie and Fannie will back it, not the lender, as long as we did it right, because they set the standards. And that's what allows the market to flow so well and be so vibrant. So enough of the economics of Freddie and Fannie or the descriptor. They're basically big insurance companies that allow the entire U.S. residential real estate market to work. So they went private after the last housing bust, whatever that year was. They were left holding the bag with all those poor underwriting standards, and they basically went insolvent and bankrupt, and the housing market would have stopped running. The federal government stepped in, gave them hundreds of billions of dollars to refund, to keep our industries rolling here. The government's owned them ever since. Now, these companies have long since repaid the federal government hundreds of billions of dollars. because every one of those mortgages that passes through their hands, a few $100 goes into the government's or into Freddie and Fannie's pockets. So the government's talking about privatizing them again to get the government out of this business. If it's done thoughtfully and carefully, it's a nothing burger. If it's done with haste, because it's a very, very complicated thing, we'll probably see mortgage rates that are, and this is speculation, in the back halls of mortgage conferences that are a percentage point or two higher.
Up to 2 points?
Higher, and this is speculation in the hallway of boring housing wonks like me. Why? Because they provide the stability, the sense of confidence for Wall Street and investors around the world to buy mortgage-backed securities. If they're less confident because there is a rough privatization effort with politics embedded in it, then the buyers of bonds, those mortgage-backed securities, will get nervous, and they'll have to get paid more to take on that risk, especially if they're worried the insurance policies might go away.
So, I think that's what the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, has essentially said. Like, this isn't something you can just doge where you're going in and just cutting, just to cut, instantly cut. You have to do it at the right time, or there's going to be implications. And you do have an administration that wants lower rates, so it would seem backwards to, shove this into the private sector, without considering the rates, and doing it at the right time is going to be very important.
I'm optimistic that this is a cornerstone of the U.S. economy. I'm optimistic they're going to be thoughtful and drive it carefully.
Yeah,
I right.
hope so.
Yeah,
I think we all do.
Where do you think about rates right now? I mean, we're really at a low point outside of maybe a week here or a week there in the last, I don't know, since maybe October right now. Certainly the last 4 months we're at a low point. There's, thoughts that the uncertainty that the Fed talked about this week and the tariff uncertainty is creating an environment that's pushing rates down, long-term rates like the 30-year fixed down, and could go even lower. And nobody knows, but kind of what's your feeling on rates right now for the rest of the spring market and headed into the rest of the year?
Yeah, it's interesting. An ugly reality of housing and rates is job losses and recessions are good for mortgage rates.
Yeah.
And so why you're seeing mortgage rates come down is the markets are largely betting that we're done, that we're going to see some rate cuts. And that why we're going to see some rate cuts? Because we're going to see a slowing economy. And with a slowing economy, we're going to see some less demand, a little less inflation. So I think with the complexity we're seeing in a lot of areas, it's fair to bet things are going to slow a little bit in all likelihood. And we're going to see, I think, rates consistently in the low sixes at some point this year is what we're betting on. I've got to tell you, the last 2 weeks have been very, very robust. My desk is right in the middle of the sales floor. I like to hear what our loan officers and our call center teams are talking and saying and hearing. And there's a vibrancy among home buyers that I haven't heard in a number of years.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
Yeah.
And
you just talked about how your desk is in the middle of the sales floor. I'm going to go talk about how important that is as a leader in a company, because I think a lot of leaders like to sit in these ivory towers and not get in the trenches. I love that your desk is on the sales floor. Can you talk about how you came to that decision? I think that's great advice for anybody listening.
Yeah, and I'll double down on it. It's an interesting experiment. We just moved our offices, Tomo Mortgage's offices, to New York City from Connecticut because we're in an expansion phase, so we needed to be able to recruit people. So in the process, we went from 10 conference rooms to 2 because we want more folks learning from. If we're going to the office, we want more folks learning from each other. So we want people taking their meetings at their desks and hearing from each other. So there are no offices at our company. No one has one. I don't have one. And now we shrank the desks from 6-footers to 3.5-foot desks.
Wow.
So we're pretty tight. 3.5, I think it's 3 3/4. It took me a little time. I can just fit my monitor on the desk. It's a big monitor. We're pretty tight. We brought better snacks in. People are happy with the snacks and the coffee.
You had great snacks in Stanford. Yeah.
We got a good program in New York.
Better snacks. Wow.
And we've halved the square feet. We brought up the EDM. There's music playing at all times. And
Nice.
I'm in the middle of the floor, not isolated, because I want to hear what our folks talking to our customers are actually saying, hearing, and doing. And sure, we've got all kinds of AI tools to create text transcripts. I can't tell you hearing the emotion. I was in last evening, 7:30 at night, hearing one of our best loan officers going for the close with a customer and deciding whether to lock and how to play it out. And here's what I'm hearing. People are tired of waiting. They're just tired of waiting. And hearing the press coverage, I'm convinced our business gets busier with the press sentiment on rates, not the actual rates. Because I don't think too many folks can calculate an APR and lender fees. They just hear their friends, family, and the press. Yeah, I hope most loan officers can. I hear when and actually I'll give you one and blink twice, but I look at Google Trends compulsively, right? There's a free service called Google Trends. You could see search volume topics.
Yeah, this is a write it down. You should be using this.
Yeah. And so we were looking the other day, we went into Google Trends searches of mortgage rate. Then we took rates, the St. Louis Fed has, I think, the best ticker. Fed has the best ticker of mortgage rates. And then we took our inbound lead conversion. And then we correlated, I used ChatGPT for free, basically, to correlate that for the past 24 months. And we saw high correlation to rates moving down, searches on Google, and conversion improving. And I think that's a metaphor for media mentions. So why am I telling you this? There's a lot of talk about rates coming down. We're seeing excitement among home buyers because they feel optimistic, and the phones have been ringing off the hook on pre-approvals.
Yeah, it hasn't taken much. I mean, when you're sitting at 7.25 and then under 6 3/4, and I'm just generally speaking rates. I know obviously you can't point towards a specific rate for, it's an individual lock in there, but that general rate on any given day from 7.25 in January to now under 6 3/4, that's enough to really crank up that activity. Anything over 7 seems to me to start to stagnate. It's too much pressure. Home builders are feeling it. Home builders are over 9 months of inventory. I keep saying, we don't have an inventory problem in this country. We do not have an inventory problem. If we had this big lack of inventory, builders wouldn't be sitting over 9 months of inventory right now. We have an affordable inventory problem. If builders could build affordable inventory or build it in the locations where their demand, Northeast, there's strong demand. That's why prices keep getting pushed up in the Northeast because we don't build there. So if you could build in those locations at a number that meets the demand, then you're solving the problem. We have an affordable inventory problem. And, the only way you can really get affordability right now is those rates moving down. So when those rates move down, you get closer to 6, it'll unlock some existing home sales that have kind of been locked up. We're at the lowest point on existing home sales when you factor in employment and population ever the last couple of years on existing home sales. And one thing I know from what the new regime in DC is saying is they want lower rates and they want existing home sales to go up, because that unlocks a lot of, companies like Tomo and loan officers and appraisers and inspectors and handymen and cleaning companies. It unlocks a lot of different parts of the economy. So, Greg, any thoughts on that? Do you see a serious bump on existing home sales? Something Lance Lambert told us on this pod is most years look like the year before with just a slight increase. So do we get too carried away if rates go down to 6? Do we see a significant enough bump, or, is it meaningful? Will we feel it?
Yeah. Hey, I started getting family and friends calling yesterday and pals about that Wall Street Journal article that, we had a great month.
Yeah.
Sure, volume grew month over month, but not really year over year.
Yeah.
It's the headline reading of America. Really smart. I had one of the most brilliant internet entrepreneurs, one of the kings you see on TV, in a chat yesterday said, oh my God, housing's back. I was like,
really?
might be getting a little, get beyond the headline.
Did I fall asleep for a couple years?
Yeah.
No.
I was like, really? I think it's going to be a vibrant spring and summer selling season. I think it's going to be better than we've seen in a bit. I think we're starting to repair because psychology is improving.
I can feel it.
I totally agree. And there's no data behind it. I mean, you got to be in the trenches. That's why Greg's desk's in the middle of his office. I love that.
Yeah, Tom, I didn't hit that very hard. Yeah, I'm in the middle of the office, so I get the truth, not what people tell me in PowerPoint slides. And if not, I'm just a PowerPoint monster. It's always with the salespeople, the truth. Yeah, I think we're going to be okay this summer. I think it's going to be solid.
Good,
love it.
I like the truth. I like full. That's one of the things I wish we could. Somebody sent me this on X. I said, one of these Doge posts on X talking about kind of all the waste. And I said, is Elon talking about NAR? I just kind of subtweeted it. And then somebody wrote back, they said, oh, instead of Doge, it could be done. Department of NAR efficiency. Because there's not enough of that truth seeking, I think, from maybe an organization like that. They've done some things really well recently, meeting with members of Congress and trying to push forward, I think, some policies that have failed in the past administration in front of this Congress. I think some of those things they're doing really well, but there's other stuff that there's a lot to be desired there. Quickly, before we move into because this will kind of segue into CCP and private exclusives with the Reffkin conversation. And Reffkin put out another pointed Instagram post this week. But quickly, Greg, any thoughts on NAR? Rhode Island just recently, another big MLS kind of untied. You're seeing a lot of untying. Is this destined for an end, or are they too big really to go anywhere? Are they going to keep this tie-in agreement pretty strong based on the percentages?
I'm going to be unbound. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's just layers of distribution. I call it a club sandwich, the club sandwich of real estate. If you take out one layer of toast, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we've got wonderful, beautiful agents trying to sell people's homes and create some wealth and safety and security for them. And we've got a bunch of layers of the club sandwich trying to scrape the income off of it. It does. I couldn't care less if there was MLSs or franchisors or brokers or portals. It's a bunch of people doing hard work like you all have done to build your businesses, who are obligated to those customers, those home buyers and sellers, to represent their interests. Everyone else is just feeding off of it.
All right. One thing that does probably matter, and I think it's going away, is CCP, Clear Cooperation Policy. If we can bring up Robert Reffkin, CEO of Compass. Have you and Rob? You guys must know each other. You and Reffkin?
We don't hang out on the weekends. We've met over the years. I don't know him that well. I think he's a pretty sharp guy.
So let's bring his Instagram post up, Bobby. Obviously, these are in line with a lot of the comments he's made. So if you're just listening, I guess I'll read it off. It will be both predictable and telling to watch brokerage CEOs who denounce private exclusive today quietly adopt them tomorrow. The same leaders insisting these strategies are harmful. You know which leaders those are. To sellers will within a year be packaging and promoting their own exclusive off-market solutions. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Aggressive, straightforward, direct. Catchmark is now in his camp. Seems like the DOJ has flipped out of his camp and maybe is in the NAR Zillow camp, the Leo Pereira EXP camp that says we must have CCP. This rule must persist. I think it's a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a really big amendment to it, or it won't exist when this vote from NAR comes in the coming weeks. Should CCP exist? What's your take on it? Do you agree? And what's your take on specifically Reffkin's comments that in the near future, all of these brokerage CEOs are going to be flipping into his camp and they're going to be flip-flopping in the future?
If they have high market share, they will. If they have low market share, it's going to be much harder. What an interesting battle of titans, isn't this? This is like
So
one of the
interesting.
great heavyweight fights of all time from all different directions. This is capitalism, man. This is like the railroad barons fighting it out. That's my take on this. I think real estate often has multiple solutions because it's such a big business. And we think there's going to be one. A portal's going to win, or a big broker is going to win, or a new kind of brokerage. You know, there was such fear of EXP when it was coming along. I had one of the most telling, and I promise I'll get back to this. When I first got in this business, Dave Liniger, the famous founder of Remax, told me about
buddy.
your guy was very kind, and one day,
don't get ahead of yourself here.
Yeah, he was kind at the moment, was chatting to me, telling me about when he started the business. He was the first guy to put faxes in real estate offices, and they told him it was the end of the real estate industry, and they threw him out of an ARM meeting because he put a fax in an office. Seemed a little out of date, but okay. My take on this is, my take on this one is, Robert's pretty sharp.
Very.
This is a well thought through campaign with multiple facets, and it's not, if they win or they lose, it's not going to end here in the next, when's the vote? It's pretty soon.
I think I'm hearing very soon. I think in the next number of weeks. NAR hasn't actually given us a timetable of when
next week.
This is it's like next week.
I think. I heard a murmur that it was next week. I'm not an NAR guy.
Yeah, I'm hearing it's very soon. It's kind of like
March 12th. It says the coming weeks is the most direct thing I can find here. So it does sound like it's soon.
Well, if Greg just whispered on the pod next week, then it's next week.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
That's
hey,
what I would say.
I think Robert's a very formidable guy. I heard Hobie Hanna coming out pro the Robert statement yesterday. Hobie's a very sharp dude that's been thinking about this for decades. You know who else is sharp? Rich and Lloyd over at Zillow are pretty darn sharp.
I hear Jeremy's pretty smart too. Maybe you can help us get Jeremy Waxman on the pod.
I'll text him. I'll give you his mobile phone number. I won't do it on the show.
All right.
Bonus.
He's a sharp dude and a good guy. Hey, these guys in Detroit, I think I'm a better mortgage guy than they are. But they're formidable people in Glenzo Dummy. And so this is going to be going on for years because every action has a reaction. Hey, if I were running a portal right now and Compass did what Compass is doing, and if I lost this round, what would I do next? Buy a really high market share broker. Because I'd
or
want
a lot
some
of little
treasure in
ones.
the game. Either way, I'd want my own treasure to trade. Can I give you one other rumor that's been in the chattering of all of prop tech?
Yes.
Please.
Is if you think, I know you guys are sports fans, and you know when they do these sports right auctions?
Yeah.
And baseball gets $1 billion and they play the networks off each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's this rumor been going around. It's so fun to be able to talk. Rumor going around that there's a bunch of chatter that if Clear Cooperation ends, the next thing that happens is they will auction the listings off to one portal and try to generate hundreds of millions of dollars. Very interesting thing to watch. That's pure cocktail party chatter. So I think we're going to see a lot of different things emerge here.
Agents, past clients don't exist. Unless, of course, you're retiring in 2025, then consider your clients in the past. But if you're building a business for the future, your clients are your clients. This is where Mosaic comes in, the client experience operating platform for you to manage the client experience. See, cupcakes are cute. It's a nice thing to do, but it won't keep a client tied to you for life. It's not going to bring the value to their home living, home ownership experience for years to come. CRMs work for lead generation, lead capture, and lead communication, while Mosaic helps you transform how you manage those relationships moving forward with the value that they actually need in their home ownership lifespan. So don't wait, check out mosaic.io or find the link down below. Listen, I said this somewhere last year on either this pod or somewhere. I said, you know, if brokers wanted to you said full capitalism, titans, if brokers actually wanted to step into the game and throw a couple punches, I floated this out that in order to break the back of all the MLSs, you just basically do a hostile takeover of the MLSs. All the top 80% of market share goes to all of their MLSs in unison within a 24, 48-hour period. Put pressure on the board. You sell the MLS to me. It's the right thing to do for the MLS. Or I'm shipping all of my listings to, say, homes.com and Andy Florence. And guess who's going to fund all those purchases of the MLS? Andy Florence. You don't think he would, you think he wouldn't be game for that type of hostile takeover? That's right up his alley. I haven't seen any of the brokers do this. Brokers can't agree where to go to lunch. That's why they haven't built a portal in the last 20 years. So to get them to agree to do something like this, but I thought it was like a Bobby Axelrod type of move if they could get their stuff together and make it happen.
Yeah, this may be the reemergence of the brokerage model and the company dollar, which is really receded to agent power.
If the brokerages play it smart, or what's going to happen is the historic brokerages are going to let Rocket be the brokerage of tomorrow, Zillow be the brokerage of tomorrow today, right? And that's where you're going to kind of look at brokerages. It's going to be Zillow, it's going to be Rocket, so on and so forth.
And I'm going to anchor back to my beginning point on all this stuff. If you're an agent or a team lead or an indie broker, don't be a pawn. Don't be a pawn. At the end of the day, you're the one generating the value. Yeah,
advice
you're the one generating
the value. Advice to not be a pawn, though. But advice to not be a pawn. Do you join the big? Do you not worry about that stuff? Like, what do you do to not be a pawn in this game of big players?
First of all, long-term contracts are bad for you. Have flexibility.
We've said that a ton on here, yeah.
Good. And I'm not close enough to know what that even means. I just want to have flexibility to pick my winners. 2,
you're right.
Liability. Because things are the way they are, we all know the truth is the truth. We all know what the law is. If you or your agents are doing things that you know in your heart are pretty edgy, if you're forcing customers, forcing is a strong word. If you're providing, this is self-interested, if you're providing one mortgage recommendation and it's an in-house solution and it's higher priced and you're gleeful about it, you're a pawn.
Yep.
You're a pawn, especially if you don't own the mortgage company. If it's some bigger entity's mortgage company and you're doing it because they tell you to, and you know it's higher priced, you're a pawn. You're going to end up holding the bag. Your job, and you will have safety and value forever. If you're an agent or a team or an indie broker, and you're giving delightful service to customers, you know in the heart, getting them to the best partners, fulfill title, insurance, mortgage, you're going to be fine. And if you're just following along like a pawn, you're going to be holding the bag. That's my take.
Sage advice.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I love that. And what I'm hearing here, I think the importance of knowing how to go out and get listings is probably going to be more important than ever with this CCP stuff. I mean, but what's your view on that, Greg? Because a lot of agents, they don't hone that skill, and it sounds like that's the commodity that everyone's looking for right now. Who gets to control all the database? So tell us more about that.
That, as we've always known, it's hard work. That is going to be the oil of the real estate business. That's the natural resource. If you're a high market share lister as an individual in a neighborhood, in a city, in a town, in a region, you're going to have an awful lot of power. As long as you always remember that power is not you, it's your customer. As the thing, I'm going to start to anchor back. We are here in service of the American homeowner and home buyer. It's not about us. And if we keep that top of mind, we're all going to do just great. And if we get sucked into the battle of the titans, like, does Instagram care about our kids in his battle with TikTok? No. I heard something recently that someone said Instagram really cares about the mental health of our teenagers. Come on. I don't believe that. Yes, I'm equating agents thinking and buying off any of these brand statements that these big multi-billion-dollar public companies are the advocates for agents or home buyers or sellers. Come on. They're there to push the share price up. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well said.
There's nothing, and that is not evil, and that is not bad.
No.
That is capitalism.
Capitalism.
It's just the truth. Don't get triggered by it, right?
Like their job. That's how they get compensated. I mean, that's what people do.
We had our good friend Andrew Undum, who's Berkshire Hathaway Home Service agent. We have all of us have a lot of friends at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Andrew's very close to Gino. I really respect Gino. The amount though of BHHS agents that got emotionally triggered by a rumor that is based in nothing but fact because they're representing their shareholders is just mind-blowing to me. The emotional triggering of like, hey, a company represents shareholders, not you. It's just a fact. It's just, okay, just acknowledge it and move on. I'm so with you on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it at all.
You just got to accept the brutal facts.
Yeah. So CCP, my take on the whole thing is it's a battle of titans. It's not about customers. It's not about agents. It's a battle of titans. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if I was a big broker, damn right I'd be going for CCP. And if I was Portal, damn right I'd be fighting it like hell. Because someone's trying to yoke me a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of those things you can see both sides of the argument. Like I can see both sides. I could argue either position, like you're saying, like all out. I could argue either side of the position.
And I'm like a broken record. It's just like if I could do anything, and my ambitions here are, one, is to be kind to my friends who are agents and team leaders and indies, and two, to sell a mortgage here or two by being good at it and independent. Is at the end of the day, when we talk about all these entities and all these battles and CCP, as long as your customer knows the decisions you're taking on their behalf, you're fine. And if they don't, you're screwed.
Let's wrap with that. You mentioned it a couple times, like doing things for the customer, knowing your customer and presenting things the right way to the customer. You obviously, whether Spencer and Rich, your buddies, want to admit it or not, you had a big part in running Zillow for a long period of time. And, of course they just want to take a little bit of their credit, but I'm just going to give you all the credit. You were running Zillow.
Yes.
Team sport.
100% goes to Greg.
And
team sport.
Zillow certainly, whether agents love it or hate it, has done what you're talking about better than anybody. Here they've heard the customer, and the customer recognizes that brand. The customer believes in that brand. They use that brand. What did you learn from the days at Zillow that would help agents, help knowledge brokers do things for the customer first and always?
Yeah, it's little things every day. It's not the big speeches. It's not the things on the wall. It's not the banners. It's how you make decisions every single day in the culture of your business. And so it's hundreds and hundreds of things. Rich taught us all that, which was his mandate was power to the people. You've heard that in these things before. Power to the people. And what it meant was, in the original days of Zillow, transparency. Just give every ounce of data we could to customers and let them make a decision and get out of the way. Power to the people can go in many different ways. It was such a valuable driver for us because every teammate, every employee at Zillow could take it and think about that as their top mission. If I were an agent, a team leader, a broker, I want to make sure that every single person at my business, I don't care how they get paid, they're representing me, right? I don't care if it's commission or salary, could look up and understand in a simple sentence what the company or the business or my mandate is. And that's what Power to the People did for us.
Love that.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Power to the people. All right, Greg, you're building something powerful at Tomo, and you guys just went over to New York as your new HQ. I know you guys are looking for loan officers, and I just want to give you an opportunity to mention that if anybody knows a loan officer that wants to live in New York or lives in New York now and wants to be part of Tomo, a fast growing company, what's the details on that search?
That's super kind of you. Yeah, the business is growing. We're trying to have the lowest. We only do purchase mortgages. We're trying to have the lowest rates in the nation, enhanced by AI, faster to close, good service, and we're growing our loan officer teams in Detroit and in Midtown Manhattan. So if you live in New Jersey, Staten Island, Brooklyn, you have to be willing to do 10, 15 purchase loans a month. and you have to be willing to put the work in, because we don't care about the stories. We care about the work. We operate 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. Our team doesn't have to be there 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we need top loan officers who are purchase specialists and go to the office 3 days a week. So that's what we're up to.
And Greg, I think there's a link for people, if you're going to share this pod with a loan officer that's thinking about Detroit, thinking about New York, if you know somebody, we'll put I think you have a link where people can reach out and connect with you guys, and we'll put that down in the show notes.
Thank you.
And we'll put the link of Tomo and all of Greg's stuff down there. Greg, fascinating to be able to have this conversation at this time with you. Really appreciate it.
This was incredible.
Thanks. This was really fun. It's really fun.
This was a good one. Yeah.
I forgive you, Lisa.
I forgive you.
That's what we were waiting for.
What a backhanded acceptance. I forgive you.
Greg, do you know Lisa had the gall to say in our text group, me, Tom, and Lisa, thank you so much for checking out this week's Knowledge Brokers podcast. If you want to take what we're doing here at BAM and use it in your own business, join us over at School. We just switched BAMX into the #1 education and community platform. Go to school.com/BAMX or hit the link in the description, school.com/BAMX. I'll see you in the community.